So it's Monday, which means you guys hopefully ate your rainbow, are still eating the rainbow. We'll continue to eat the rainbow as best you could. And that you'll submit that today. One of the YouTube things you watched, whatever, the whole thing. And a really cool picture of something you rainbowed. All right. So for next week, that's what I'm glad actually there were 3 of you. Our theme is GBOMBS. And some of you who've had me for Chem 106, you too will see this in the next week. But this has shown up, and it may have actually Raoul and Maddie back in Chem 151. So this comes from Dr. Furman, who's actually lived really close to my parents, and they actually saw him give a talk at their library like 30 years ago when he was just starting out. And so he's got a really cool story. So there's a little TED talk from him. And he has a New Jersey accent, so just kind of go with that. But he's the one who came up with this little acronym, and it makes it really easy. Actually, people say, because it is really easy for me to talk about. So this is what you're going to be doing for the week, is trying to do GBOMBS. And so I really laughed reading Amanda and some other, she commented it was really hard to do the beans for a week. And guess what the first bee is going to be? So we're going to walk through these. You're for your 7 days, you can do it in 1 meal. That's what a lot of people end up doing who've taken on this challenge. I mean, you guys don't get an option. They would always get different choices. So you can easily do a salad where you can see you have the greens, which Jared already had his greens. Open a can of beans, put some beans on there. So the things that have been interesting, and as I go through each of these, I'll talk about it. Onions and mushrooms are the Achilles heel. One or the other. I guess for you, it's going to be beans. One of these is Achilles heel for each of you. So mushrooms, it's a texture thing. And it doesn't mean you have to eat a whole meal of mushrooms. So when I first got married, in the Asian cultures, they use mushrooms in everything. And I just became like, I never want to eat a mushroom again. And so it took a while until I absolutely love mushrooms, and I'm in their mindset now. But it's a texture thing. And you don't have to eat a lot. It's just, you can cut up, I don't know, you can be like, I'm going to cut up one and put it in my salad. I don't know. Onions. It doesn't have to be onions. It can be anything from that family. And when I get to the slide, I'll talk about, so it could be garlic. Some people actually have allergies to garlic or onions, or one of them, but there's a whole family. He just, rather than saying allium and saying GBOMBS, he should have done G-babes or something. That would have been better. Berries. Strawberries are, well, not local ones. I don't know if you guys have heard, this is terrible news. We might not have hoods this year at all. So they can't plant them because it's so muddy. And so they haven't even planted them yet. And the weather is just so soggy. Our local strawberries might not happen this year. And then seeds, of course, can be seeds and nuts. But yeah, you do the best you can. So let's walk through them, and we'll start with, if I have my, to laugh every time, it's never on. So we'll start with G is for greens, that eating your greens. And again, I commented on this last week that it's really cool to see that you guys are, at least while you're in my classroom, not drinking the Starbucks and stuff. And it's actually quite a joy to turn and see like Jared sitting there munching on like grapes and his greens. He was already had his greens for breakfast. So there's so many different types of greens, and my next slide talks about this. And I've actually talked about this before, but I thought it was worth going through it again. So this is actually, I grew up again on the East Coast, and so I've been to Valley Forge. So that would be the winter of 1777. It's a very harsh winter. And I mean, you cannot imagine the situation these folks were in. And they had no food. The fact that we got independence and that these guys end up winning this war, if you can call it that, is really hard to believe when you really go and look at some of this. But George Washington told his troops they needed to forage. And actually, Joel Furman, in one of his videos, I don't know if it's the TED Talk I have you guys listening to, but he talks about that you should go in your woods and forage for your greens, because there's different greens. So I have a friend who gave me, and they just keep coming up in my garden. And I I don't know, there's certain, I can't remember the name of them, but they grow out. You should not go and forage unless you know what you're foraging for, because there are things that can destroy your liver really fast. So I'm not recommending that you do it, but apparently you could live by going for walks in the woods if you become educated. There was actually another one, I have to find her again, and she was all about it. She apparently had MS and was in a wheelchair, and she started researching it and completely started foraging, and is walking and gives talks and everything now. I mean, it was just really inspirational. And then the second week of the term came, and ever since then, I've been almost in like what she talked about, trying to keep my mindfulness as best as I can. But the putrid disorders is more that we need to have bowel movements every day. So today, what's the average intake is? The average intake is about 1 in 25 Americans, our standard American diet, eat a dozen servings a month. That's like not even every other day. That's like maybe 3 days a week. Yeah, it is. 3 days a week, you're eating a serving. I have a salad every day. I have a green smoothie every day. I have like probably 3 servings a day. And my salads are big, loaded with greens and all a variety. The darker the better, different colors and stuff. And it's estimated, this is a study from Harvard, and Dr. Furman has a thing also. For every additional serving, you're going to decrease your risk of heart disease and stroke. So you need to incorporate greens and have fun making salads. Like several of you have commented, you know, that the family's getting in on it, or the other people, and they're like, you're helping them. Just see that. And that's my goal for this, is that every time you start eating healthy, you will inspire that, and you're going to be the cooks for your family. And you want to be that. You don't want to be the person, you all know people, you go to their house and one person never cooks, and that might be a good thing. But it's really fun to make a salad and to have it be vibrant. Anyway, this is, we've talked about this. I mean, the other one. So CoQ10 is, speaking of mitochondria and cellular respiration, CoQ10 is one of the molecules in the electron transport chain. And it's there, it's a powerful antioxidant. So what's going on in our mitochondria is electrons are moving around. The whole thing you need from your food is electrons, and it's oxygen. The reason we're breathing is to get the oxygen in. The reason we're eating is our food has electrons. The reason you survive eating crap is there's still electrons in crap. You can eat cardboard and you would still survive. So there's a whole nother issue there, which maybe we'll get to next week. But so the electrons get transferred to the oxygen, and in that process, a lot of free radicals are created, because of free radicals when the electrons don't move right. And so our body was already made perfect, and so there's a powerful antioxidant already there, ready to make everything perfect, except an antioxidant. So we'll get to vitamins A and C, and nobody's picked vitamin E. So if you're not happy with your topic, talk to me today. There are other possibilities. That this goes in and fills it in, but it gives up its electrons, and so it has to get recharged. Does anybody remember what recharges it? It's why it's leafy greens. So what makes things green is chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is the super molecule that recharges this antioxidant, so it can be an antioxidant again. And so it recharges it. And so we don't have to create a new molecule. We just have to get the electrons back to it. And so eating greens give you lots of chlorophyll. And there's this whole big fad right now doing the chlorophyll supplements. And I don't understand it, because these people would be better served to eat real food, because there's so much more in here than just the chlorophyll. But again, chlorophyll looks just like it is. It has the porphyrin ring, just like in hemoglobin, and it's just magnesium. So it's a really good source of magnesium too, which that was really fascinating. I had never heard that, but it totally makes sense. Everything's in balance. So if you have a deficiency in sodium, then the magnesium, the potassium, everything's going to be off. So a deficiency in one. And the connection, I was waiting for it on yours, to sleep. So we all hear, I don't know, you know, right, magnesium and cramping or whatever, and sleep and stuff. A lot of people will take that, but it's like all of it's connected. So chlorophyll recharges it. And so you need to eat a salad every day. And every time you eat greens, your brain, they say, if you eat greens every day, your brain will be 11 years younger, not meaning in maturity, but in oxidative beauty, that it's not oxidized. And oh, the picture wasn't there. That was like my favorite cartoon I found this weekend was Eat Your Green. So Campfire Boys wore green. There's no Campfire Boys anymore, but there's our Sasquatch. Yeah,
Are those like Boy Scouts?
I think they're Campfire Boys. I think because Boy Scouts wear blue.
Blue, yeah. It's just like.
That's what Joey, I showed Joey and he's like, we don't wear green. Joey's very linear thinking. And anyway, I love Sasquatch. And so there you go. Arugula, absolutely. This is probably my favorite. Used to be kale. And now kale's got such overdone. But there's so many different ones. So do not go in your backyard and pick dandelion. It's going to be, there's like hundreds of different dandelions and it's extremely bitter. And the one that grows wild in our yards is like the most bitterest thing that I think there is. People grow a certain type of dandelion and that one's more pleasant. It's still bitter. Go ahead.
Can you eat like Brussels sprout leaves? Like, would that be like good or?
Are you asking, do you do that?
No, I mean, I'm growing Brussels sprout right now, Brussels sprouts right now.
I don't know
and
if
there's
you
so many leaves
can.
on it.
I
and it's
don't-
like, should you eat them?
I think you might want to try chewing on one and seeing if that's possible.
But
I've
like
done weird
cooking it
stuff
down a
like
little
this.
bit, you know?
So broccoli, I do eat the leaves.
Okay,
I
I've done
don't,
broccoli too.
I actually don't put them in a salad. I usually put them in a smoothie. Because in a salad, in the smoothie, somehow you don't get the taste as much. Don't put spinach in a smoothie because you'll taste the spinachy
I
taste.
love
But like,
spinach in my smoothie.
well, some people can't handle the spinachy taste, whereas kale really doesn't have much taste. So a lot of people will start with that. Endive has a strong taste. I've never seen this one, but anyway, and they're also missing, there's some really cool ones. Oh, collards. I cannot do collards. Does anybody here do collards? Yeah, I was at a store and the guy was trying to convince me and I'm like, have you ever had collards? He's like, yeah, I don't like them. I'm like, yeah, no, they're extremely bitter. That's a southern one. Watercress, that was the one. This is growing, if you have a garden, it's the weed that you're always pulling out, but it's actually, yeah.
They have wraps at natural grocers where they put it in collard greens.
Do you like them?
No, it ruins it.
It's,
Like,
it's,
why wouldn't you?
why, right? Thank you.
Why wouldn't you wrap this in romaine or something?
Yeah, and please note is romaine even up here?
Yeah. It's probably-
Okay, like all the different, you can get so many different, but what is missing from here is that head lettuce. That is not a green. It's white, it has absolutely no chlorophyll in it. It's not healthy for you. The thing that was missing from the previous one, I thought was on there was the microbiome, the little bacteria guy eating a salad, because this feeds your microbiome. Your microbiome is going to be so happy and you will become regular. You'll be much happier. Maybe the first day or two, your family might be miserable because they're actually using the bathroom more, but then everybody becomes more happy because they're flowing, the fluidity of it. All right, so B is for beans. So yes, another week. You guys should all, how many of you made black bean brownies? I made them this weekend. They're like almost gone. Yeah, make black bean brownies. I forgot to put my recipe in the past 2 weeks. I make every Saturday. Actually, my schedule shifted. So right now it's Sunday. Saturday or Sunday, I make my own homemade burgers. And so this week it was chickpea and I think I used rice. So there's certain things that combine, and I put tons of spices. It's so easy to make, and I always throw mushrooms in. You have to have a food processor, and everything just goes in the food processor, and then you form them in, you just put them in the oven, and then you go do stuff. But mine have mushrooms. They had everything. They have the onions. The only thing I didn't have was berries, but then we put them on a salad with that. They tend to be softer than those cardboard ones that you buy in the store. So I am not a fan at all of the beanie burgers you buy in the freezers, because those are highly processed and I really don't know what's in them. So you can find really cool recipes for a mushroom bean burger that will have onions or garlic. And you can get this whole thing. There you go, in one meal. Or make the black bean brownies. The people who have, they'll tell you it was really weird making them, and then she's made them twice now, I think, right? They're amazing. First time I made them, like, there's no way, this is weird. And they're my absolute favorite. So the reason we keep going back to beans is, and again, this is an older study, not a huge fan of any of these institutes, but it was the most important predictor of survival in older people, and has to do with the amount of fiber that these guys have, as well as protein. And so they're just, and they're probably your best prebiotic. So probiotic is the actual bacteria that people will take probiotics and will have 1 billion bacteria in it, because you're hopeful that maybe 1%, that you might get 1,000 of them start to colonize, but they're not going to work if you're not giving them food. It's like planting a garden. So you're trying to plant a garden, you're putting the seeds out, and only a certain amount of the seeds are going to ever do their thing. But you have to put nutrients there. And so that's what the prebiotics are. And the nutrients they absolutely love, fruits and vegetables, and these guys. And it has to be, it's the fiber combined, hooked onto it. And it's something about these that your microbiome absolutely loves them. And it's a wide variety. Again, my favorite, I just covered up, is these pink lentils that you can find everywhere. So I don't have a problem telling you that. You can find chickpeas in like every possible color. There are black ones. If you go to an Indian store, it's really fun because they just have bags and bags of different beans. Like I said, when I was in Nepal, every town we go through, when you're walking into the village, you would go past these. And I thought everything initially was green beans, but they weren't. They're the different legumes, and every town would have a different color that they'd make their dal bhat from. But your microbiome will keep feeding you. And again, it's not just the dried beans. I make a pot of dried beans. I do soak, and then I pour it off, because that's probably getting rid of one of those evil things that's on there. And I tend to do better. And so I was thinking about you, and I was wondering, that might be something, because you said you never do good with any of them. I don't do good with red. I stay away from the red ones, unless it's the small ones I can do, because they're like the original ones. But
Black beans for me are the least bad.
do you rinse them, or you don't make
If
them?
I cook with them, yeah.
Yeah, so you soak. I always soak. I know some people say they don't soak, and these are people who are all like in their 70s and 80s, and I've thought about this, and I'm like, they still have a microbiome. We all got, like, from the processed food, you guys have like 10% their microbiome. And so you pre-soak, you can soak them overnight, a bag, and then you dump out the water and start fresh. And if you're like me and you forget, then you just do hot water for like an hour, and then you can dump it off. There are some people who say you should do that because you're losing some of the nutrients, but you're also, that helps a lot with some of the gastric distress that some people feel with. And the lentils are the ones that I've never had any issues with, and they come in every possible color. Don't get brown lentils. They have absolutely no taste at all. But yeah, so your microbiome feeds you. I've talked about that. They actually make a lot of your vitamins. That's including, I'm pretty sure they might make B12 for us. But one of the big things they make is this molecule. It's on the next slide. So propionate is a 3-carbon. So this is a carboxylic acid, correctly written. And what this molecule does is, when it's released by your microbiome, it slows down absorption of sugar. And so we've become really focused on blood sugar. Our whole society is really focused that, does it cause a rise in blood sugar and stuff? These guys slow it down. And so the first time it was observed, it was with lentils, and it was called the Lentil Effect. And that was in 1982 when they did these studies and showed it's not just that meal that it slows down, which is what fiber does. Eating whole food slows down the absorption, because it slows down the emptying of your stomach and slows everything down until you get to the large intestine and speeds up. It actually slows it down the next meal. So if you're eating beans and then you're going to have like for later meals, you don't have to have beans at every meal, even though some people in my other class, they did do that, but they're eating, yeah, don't buy canned baked beans. If you do, read the label and then you can be horrified. I should have made you guys like read the label of canned baked beans because it's sugar. I'm pretty sure high fructose corn syrup is the first ingredient, and every other thing, there's got to be MSG in there as a flavoring too. Why you can't just have one can of them. Anyway, so now it's called the second meal effect because all of the legumes do. And again, you can do edamame, which you can buy frozen, and beans and peas. I don't know if green beans have the second meal effect or not, but that does fall in that category, and peanuts. So, right, if you eat legumes, your sugar spike from foods eaten later will actually be blunted. So, and kids absolutely love like these. I think these are green beans. Kids love them because they're like finger food, and it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers cholesterol, and it actually decreases tummy fat, and it regulates insulin and blood glucose. And so why, when you look at the American Diabetes Association, they tell why this is nowhere, anywhere, not a single word about these. And it might be our #1 thing for helping people with diabetes. And again, since over 95% of them are type 2. So that propionate is a short chain fatty acid. So fatty acids, we've talked about, there's medium chain, and that's from coconut oil, and that's their whole big thing that they add the medium chain fatty acids. But the short chain are these guys, the propionoic and butyric. And then these we get into the, and your microbiome, they've been looking for this. They knew this was the thing that regulated hunger, and they've been the magic bullet that will be the magic diet pill. And they've tried giving it as a pill, and it doesn't work. Your body has to make it itself. And what makes it is your microbiome when they're fed beans. And so when you're fed beans, it blunts all the reactions, and it actually makes you feel full, as opposed to MSG, which you just keep eating. That was fascinating. I had never heard that. And that's why those guys can keep eating at those. That's why like Joey or whatever his name is, who eats 100 hot dogs every year on the 4th of July. I just know his name's Joey, and he's not, he's like the size of Steven. I don't know, maybe now he's not. But
It's like the food competition guy.
yeah, there's several of them.
I think I saw one like interview with him, and after he'd done it, and he was talking about sweating it out. And he smells like hot dogs for a long time afterwards. Yeah, he's sweating out the hot dog.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so they make these short chain fatty acids, and they then go to your nervous system, to your microbiome. I was looking for the picture. Your microbiome controls your emotions and stuff. And so we've talked about serotonin receptors are in your gut and all over. They control your immune system and your immune response. And so you guys are at that point in the term where everybody's like, oh, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? Yes, you are going to make it. What happens though in the 10th week and the 11th week is everybody's like in this crunch time, and that suppresses your immune system. And so you want to support it as much as possible. And so eating legumes and finding a clever way. This is just a picture I found. It was just the things that help to feed your microbiome, which is whole foods and a variety. The key that they're all everywhere saying now, it's got to be a variety. And yeah, you can see there's a lot of different, but to get diversity, there's a reason that now I have to remember why I put that on there. You know, maybe it was because they actually mentioned the fact of antibiotics and the overprescription of them. So antibiotics destroy your microbiome. And so again, I think I talked about in here that before the age of 2, it's something like kids are on 6 to 8 rounds of antibiotics, which just destroys it. But you do see a change there's been several studies that have shown you see a change really fast. And these are all, your food is your prebiotics that will allow your microbiome to grow and flourish. And you need a diversity, full diversity. And that's part of the problem. And why Stephen cringed probably when he said, well, I'm not keto or paleo, is all these diets are very mono, and they're like, you keep eating this and this, right, one thing, and it's really eating the diversity. I think it was that a lot of them, yeah. All right. And so again, foods that build is our veggies, nuts and seeds are going to feed our microbiome. So his whole thing, his GBOMBS, and he came out with GBOMBS before the whole big microbiome explosion that has happened. And really his whole thing is all about prebiotic foods. And this is great. They tell you legumes if they're tolerated. And so it's learning why they're tolerated or why they're not tolerated. And the reason why people cringe or will say they don't tolerate them is you become gassy or the gastric distress. And so that's from Hippocrates. And I remember when I was pregnant with Joey, I went to a Qigong lesson, and the guy, he was from China, and he talked about it. And so in other cultures, they talk about the importance. Everybody passes gas every day, even people who say that they don't. This has got to be the creepiest ad I've ever found, but it was wonderful. Beans good for the heart. The more you eat, the more you fart. The more you fart, the better you feel. So let's eat some beans for every meal, but it's still a creepy guy in there. The number one cause of flatulence is not actually beans. It is actually swallowing air when you eat. So that mindful eating, it's mindful May, we're like halfway through. So hopefully you guys are enjoying whatever your healthy change is for the month, that it's going well. And the other, I had all the different things from the swallowed air, and the other big cause is fermentation in the bowels, which is lactose. So swallowing air is chewing gum is the number one cause. And sucking on sweets, so as well as smoking, because all those things, you're opening and closing and you're swallowing air as you do them. And so don't chew gum while you're eating your baked beans. Using a straw, it's a difficulty, and eating way too fast. Like, that's my biggest problem. So that's the thing behind the mindful eating, is when we're eating slower. Look at this cute little plate. Yeah, eating way too fast, eating too much at one time, eating much too fast. And again, lactose is the number one cause of fermentation in the bowels. And this is a real picture. I don't remember if I showed it in here, but one of the causes of global warming is all the farts from sheep and cows. And so they're now collecting the burps and the farts and trying to heat houses. And this is actually from just north of us in the state of Washington. So WSU got a grant. Everybody's getting grants. Originally, it was only Argentina got the first grant like 10 years ago, and now there's tons of these pictures. I have not actually gone by and seen one of these, but they wear these little backpacks and it fills up with methane, and then you can heat the house or something. Huh?
How did they catch it?
The cow?
Yeah, how did they catch the methane when the
Oh,
cow
it's
releases
there's a
it?
tube.
Butt tube?
I think also though it's more in their burps. For
Okay.
them, it's really the burps. So there's got to be a tube somehow also to their mouth, which the humaneness
Yeah,
of
I'm
this
sure they love it.
Yeah,
is
good fun. Make them carry it too.
right. You can also buy underwear that has a charcoal filter in it, so that you can fart away his. Yeah. And there is a guy who developed something, gosh, I can't remember. I think it was a gum, but you can activated charcoal. A lot of people will do that because it absorbs it. Activated charcoal totally constipates you, and I'm pretty sure it does not do good stuff for your microbiome. So it's not a good fad. And of course, anywhere you look at anti-nutrients, they will put beans. And to put white bread and highly processed cereal on the same thing as the anti-nutrient of beans, to me is just insane. And so they talk about the dark side of the plant kingdom, which is this is my favorite, is that they're saying polyphenols are part of the dark side and anti-nutrients. It just fascinated me. The oxalates have been up there forever because people get kidney stones, but the real question is, why are they getting kidney stones? Because oxalates are really healthy for you. And then of course, lectins have gotten a really bad name. And these noxious and invasive species, which you can actually eat. And so there's actually a lot of places out there online that talk about that, the whole hype that has been going on, dissing nutrients, which is of the plant kingdom, that these nutrients are the ones that protect you from cancer, alkalize your blood. Antimicrobial does not mean for your gut, but for your immune system, and enhance your brain and cardio health. And so, right, if you want a healthy microbiome, there, all right, O is for onions. I could go on, which is also garlic. So to me, how much garlic? There's never enough garlic. And this is the chemist in me. So there is sulfur, and that is the miracle part, because the sulfur, garlic is one of the miracle foods out there. And this is an enzyme because the ACE ending. And it is this enzyme which gets activated when you chop the garlic, the onions, whatever the allium is, activates it. And this is the active ingredient that is the huge thing for cancer and heart. I think heart is the big thing. So people will take tablets rather than actually eating the garlic and the onions. And that's just a picture of the enzyme, because it's an enzyme that does it. But there's a whole wide, I was in, I must have that right look, because foreigners always walk up to me and the guy's like showing me a picture on his phone. He's trying to find something in the grocery store and it was leeks. I'm like, oh, you're trying to find leeks, right? And I'm like, they don't have them because it was Sunday evening and they ran out of everything. And then, and he didn't like my answer. And so I found another guy who took him to the same spot I did and said, oh. But yeah, chives, shallots, onions. There's actually a whole list. This is a small list of them, and they do tons of stuff. Big one is cancer, again, blood sugar levels. In Chinese medicine, you make, they call them white onion, but you use the green onions and ginger and garlic, and you make a little soup, hot water, and you drink that for the cold. Earache, you can actually put the clove of garlic on the ear and it supposedly helps to pull it out besides eating it. And so there are things where you actually can put it on the garlic or the onion on like the bee sting or different things. So it's pretty much everything it's showing up for here. Ayurvedic medicine, by the way, is ancient India. And this cracked me up because this came up. And so in Indian, Nepali cooking, you use tons of garlic and onions, everything has it. And this is now becoming a fad, Ayurvedic, even though it's got to be the oldest fad ever because it's thousands and thousands of years old. It's probably the oldest medical system out there because it's the ancient yogics. So it's before Hippocrates. It's where Hippocrates got a lot of his stuff from. But it's exactly the same things that previous slide have. And why it cracked me up is because there's also the dark side of garlic is the true yogis will not eat garlic. So they have 4 foods that they say you cannot eat. One is eggplant, which is another superfood. Garlic and onions. And it took me a long time to find out why. And it's an aphrodisiac. And so when they're meditating all day, they don't want to be horny, basically.
Yeah, I wonder there's this
That's what it came down
a
to.
Buddhist nun who doesn't eat like any like garlic or onions, and
Nope.
she said it's because it's an exciting thing, and I was like, that's
It's
so
excitatory,
weird.
yeah. They don't eat those, and they don't want their, and a lot of people in my other class, they're writing about their meditation because I make them meditate for 10 days or whatever. And they all talk the first few days, that's hard to turn your brain off, but it does, it overstimulates, it's excitatory. And so I don't know.
I would try.
Yeah. Perhaps if I ever get to that point. So they say no garlic. And then there's the other reason, the dark side, just to remind you, right? And you guys, the three people who talked today were brilliant because one, they were all three so different, but they were all the same. And I just wanted to thank you guys for doing that. And I hope you guys all personalize it like that and let your own style show through. But FODMAP, I talked about a long time ago. So it's foods of oligo, disaccharides, mono, and alcohol, polyalcohols and stuff. But anyway, garlic is considered bad on FODMAP. I cannot remember why, what it has in it. But garlic and onions, FODMAP has got to be the worst thing that ever came out. It's the worst acronym ever. And so there's all these people, I work with some of these people and they're not healthy and they don't eat healthy. And I go out with them, oh no, I can't have onions on that. And I'll ask them, please make sure my whatever. And then they're like, hey, let's share a dessert. And I'm like, I don't want a dessert. No, no, no. And they insist. And so I'm like, well, I'll take it home.
What is that again? Like, what's the point of?
So they're saying that the garlic's causing them distress. So the problem they're having distress is they're not eating healthy and they don't have a healthy microbiome. And it's that week of the transition time. So this amazed me that there is this, that you can have the garlic flavor without having garlic and onions. And so you're going to love what it is. It is maltodextrin,
Perfect.
which is perfect because it's the corn. So when they do the high fructose corn syrup, they've been trying for decades to figure out what to do with all this corn and all the stuff left over when we make the high fructose corn syrup. And so they're just finding other things to add to your food and to convince you this is healthier than eating garlic. Your microbiome is thanking you when you're eating garlic. They love it. Anyway, so there we go. So maltodextrin, I think we go into another. It was so easy to say, is there a dark side? And just I got like a billion hits. Like every kind of place except FODMAP is like, are you guys for sure, for real? Like whether it was keto, whether it was vegan, paleo, they were all like, this is pure evil. Like every YouTuber was like, this stuff is awful. Yeah, anyway. So you can see it suppresses the growth of your probiotics, as I just said. It has absolutely no nutritional value. It's from the GMO corn. It's basically the leftovers. People, right, you get a spike in blood sugar, even though, right, it's probably because it's the maltose. All right, M is mushrooms. So some of you hopefully do like mushrooms like I do. It's learning how to cook them. So there is, you're not supposed to eat raw mushrooms. You're supposed to lightly cook them. However, with that, some people cannot handle it. This is what I use in place of oil. I always start with the mushrooms. A lot of the water is released. You have to have everything prepared, and then I throw the onions in, and it sautés them beyond anything that oil has ever done it. I see it was something, a comment my twin brother made, which is if you think of mushrooms more as a flavoring, with that I make mushroom soup with, but deadly, delicious, disgusting, and magical. All mushrooms do have a little bit of psilocybin in them. They've been consumed for thousands of years for medicinal reasons as well as nutritional. There's debates if it's 13,000 years old or even older than that. That's the oldest ruins that are known, but it's how far back you want to put humanity and ruins and stuff, and that gets into a whole nother thing. In ancient Egypt, apparently only the royalty were allowed to consume mushrooms. If you think about it though, Egypt's a really dry climate. So mushrooms probably don't grow in Egypt. So they probably only got them through the traders and stuff. Right now, our mushrooms are all over. Go for a walk on campus and just look down and just enjoy the mushrooms in all different colors. If they have the bright spots, don't touch them. There's anywhere from 38,000 to 100,000. Like who can count? Doesn't matter. There's so many different ones. And each one has a unique flavor, taste, distinct texture. And amazing for our health, especially your lungs. And I made this slide originally right when COVID happened. And so there's in like the natural grocers, you can find those supplements, and they're always mushrooms, and turkey tail was a big one. And now we keep going on a different one, reishi mushrooms and stuff. I have a friend, and actually they do that. They are mushroomers, and they make extracts from them. And yeah, anyway. So in Chinese medicine, there are certain ones, in Ayurvedic, there are certain ones that grow, of course, in the Himalayas that have huge effects. And they have a mix of all different wonderful molecules. They have heteropolysaccharides, which means rather than the ones that we find in starch in our whole foods and stuff, these guys are a mix of different. So they're just all different monosaccharide units, from glucose, fructose, mannose. They're ones that are not found in anything else. And this is why it's probably a superfood. And then the linkages, if you remember back, those of you who took biochem with me, we talked about alpha 1,4 and beta 1,4 and alpha 1,6. These guys have a whole slew of different, there's alpha 1,3s and beta 1,2s. That's cordyceps, which only grows in one place in the Himalayas and is like possibly one of the greatest mushrooms, except then people go and overpick them, or they pick them wrong and then they destroy the fungus underneath the ground and stuff. And that's, I think I talked about him last week. He's the goat herder who fed us the mushrooms. And there's the different linkages that they have. And this was just us with the goat herder when he fed us, and he thankfully didn't feed us alcohol. And I mentioned this, you should never have alcohol. I don't know if it's with all mushrooms, but with wild mushrooms, and it probably has to do with the detox your liver has to deal with both. But I had the greatest cleansing experience. I thought I was going to be dead within 3 days. And then I giggled because I was so excited. I came to class 3 days later and I didn't die, because the mushrooms, you get better and then you die 3 days later. It's really fun being overeducated, because you can Google and understand like what's going to happen, because it then just destroys your liver. But we had not eaten the deadly one. We had just eaten one and drank alcohol. And then I told the story to 3 different friends, and each one of them had just started giggling because they all had the same situation where they had had wild mushrooms and alcohol in the same meal and had become violently ill. However, after those 3 days of being violently ill, not getting out of bed, imagining me and Airy Fairy in the same hospital next to each other, because we were the ones who had had it. Who? Airy Fairy, who is one of my former students. That's what I call her. I have names for all my students. She's very pregnant right now, so she's like due this next 2 weeks. Anyway, antiviral, antioxidant, immunomodulatory. This means blocks pain perception, protects your, this is interesting. Hepato means liver. It protects your liver, even though your liver is the one that's detoxing it. And it's huge for your lungs, and it's a variety again. So, and it's something that Dr. Furman talks about. He's like, it doesn't matter. Like some people are really about, oh, it has to be the wild ones. It has to be the cordyceps. It has to be, you know, turkey tail or whatever. And definitely do not go picking. Somebody asked me this. Do not go unless you're with somebody who's knowledgeable, because it really wasn't fun those 3 days of being extremely ill. However, with that said, I never felt better in my life than at the end of those 3 days. One, because I was still alive, but my body was so cleansed. Like there is no cleanse you can buy anywhere for $1 million that could have cleansed me like that experience. But they're extremely beautiful. And but he said even the white ones, those little white ones you buy in the store, and they all have a little bit of the magical psilocybin, which do grow on the campus, the ones that have a lot more than a little bit that has the magical purposes. And combine it with ginger, combine it with, we're going to talk about spices. And then B is for berries. The other B is for berries, which are starting to come into season. And they, of course, the different R groups. We talked about the anthocyanins, the polyphenols. They're just loaded with all this stuff. Again, another feast for your microbiome. And so these were the only thing that were not in my veggie burgers, but we then put them on a salad, or the greens were not, but They would be easy to incorporate. So we had greens and berries on the salad, and then I don't eat burgers. I just put them on the salad. It was amazing. And so eating your berries, remembering to chew. And sorry, my thing's not working. I couldn't find the creepy turtle eating the strawberry picture, but I love the raccoon. But somebody got a raccoon to sit at the table and eat with. That must have been a baby raccoon. Even the Smurfs eat their berries. And they're really high on the ORAC, which is this oxygen absorption. And so all different berries, doesn't matter which one. There's not one that's better. You can read that one is better. But again, all this stuff are antioxidants. They're just loaded. The more color, every color has different antioxidants, different antioxidant capacity. What blows this chart away though, which we will get to, are spices. Spices make this chart, these guys are babies compared to spices. So spice it up. And then the S is for seeds that, and they can be nuts. I think actually most of you like the seed one better, but there are so many different seeds out there. Yeah, I don't know why that door locks when you open it, so I apparently can't unlock it. Or when you come back in, you have to hit the unlock, I guess. So chia seeds, and we talked about, I can't remember who did chia seeds, but apparently you have to grind them. And I'm wondering if that's the same with the hemp seeds. But if you have a mortar and pestle, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds help with sleep. I mean, they all help with everything. And they're really high in lignans, and they're really high in the omegas. So we talked about the omegas. They're going to have both omega-3s and 6s. And this is the one where I've had students say, well, why do you eat sunflower seeds? If you're eating it as a whole food, it's different from the processed food where you're only getting omega-6s. It's going to be oxidized omega-6s. And so using real seeds. In black bean brownies, you'll put the eggs in there. So you can eat flax. You can also get this from flax, that you can go online and buy a supplement that's high in the lignin from the flax. And I don't understand why you buy the supplement that would only be the lignin. Why wouldn't you just eat the real flax or the real sunflower seeds or hemp seeds? And for the dark side, apparently you can get a lignin lightsaber crystal, which cracked me up that you could find that. But lignins are really high in flax, and I imagine in all the other seeds, and they are really good for breast cancer. I remember a study I read like decades ago about that, and one of the big things about flax is like the highest source of them. Lignans are really high in broccoli too, and that's one of the big things about broccoli with breast cancer. And feeding your microbiome. So there we go. So it helps everything. And again, when they're saying antimicrobial, they're talking about for your immune system and fungal infections and things like that. Anti-hyperlipidemic. So this is when your blood lipids are off. So having high triglycerides or something. But lignans are really high in the seeds, and that's the fiber that's in seeds. And not eating them, you're going to feel bloated. And initially you might feel bloated because your microbiome has to adapt, but it wasn't actually, I think the week of the seeds, everybody was happy that week. It might have been, but some of the other ones people had a little bit of trouble with. But that's some of the pictures. And just a reminder also for everybody, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if you had B1, a picture of B1.
Mm-hmm. It was on the first slide. You couldn't see it really well though.
Yeah, I do want to remind you all this camera, it's like the coloring is off. So, but a reminder for all of you to have a picture, especially if you have a vitamin and if you have a mineral, you'll have the symbol up there, I guess, of sodium or potassium, and have a lot of fun with it. But these guys are, yeah, they become like these polymer kind of things, I guess, is the best. And there's so many different ones. Josie can tell you all about Sesame Seeds. And that's actually where the term open sesame came from. So the seed, we get it already opened up, but it comes in a pod. And so to get the pod opened, and that's where that terminology came from. But sesame had like these 3 molecules that they actually named them all sesame something, sesaminol or something, that are like these super molecules. And so eating a variety of these. And you can get them also as, like for me, I eat it as tahini as well as sesame. You can also, I don't remember if you talked about this, and I just remembered this, there's black sesame seeds. And so there are some people who are big into, if you can get the black ones, and the only reason for that is it's going back to our Roy G. Biv, that's going to have, they're not actually black, it's a deep dark purple blue. And so it's really high in the anthocyanins. Flax definitely has to be milled. And again, somebody talked about, I think that was Maddie, about the chia, does have to be, it's better if it's milled. So it'd be interesting. The thing that's nice is because you're getting it as the whole, it's once you mill it. So like flax, you do need to refrigerate. It comes like vacuum packed. And then as soon as you open that, you do want to keep these refrigerated, like pumpkin seeds, all of them, I keep in my refrigerator. And that is because they're high in omega-3s. And this is a slide from somebody in my other class did hemp. And so hemp seeds are amazing. They do not come from the flower. So the flower is where we get all the wonderful oils and stuff. But the seed would be what would grow the next one. Hemp is like the perfect plant because the leaves actually make the best fiber. And it was an unfortunate thing that happened also right before the Revolutionary War. So Thomas Jefferson actually grew hemp. He'd gone to France and got hemp seeds and he grew it. But then something happened with cotton, and cotton became our predominant textile. Cotton, like all of you wear cotton, cotton gets holes in it really easily. Hemp like lasts forever. And so not forever, but things that are made with hemp. And so sometimes like it's at some of those alternative stores. So eat your seeds. Yeah. And this is why, I know why. I was saying you can also, if you'd rather, do nuts, because some of you like the nuts better. Most of you prefer the seeds because of different issues. And there we go. So greens, it's on the handout. The folder is open because your paper, it's the same parameters as last time. The paper is due by the weekend. So if you get it in earlier, that's great. You're all doing your presentations on Wednesday. You do need to be here because it's part of your grade. And you're gonna start eating GBOMBS for this week. And any questions for me before? All right. So your notes, you should have taken notes as well as your evaluations of Josie, Stephen, and Miranda. And then Wednesday will be completely notes and interaction. You're going to ask questions for people.